Hey everyone, it's Chris here, and welcome back for the first time in over a year to a brand new episode of No Dedication is Good Enough. For new watchers, this is not a regular series. It's probably not an entertaining series. It's more of a vlog, I guess, and a look back for me in the future. Through my journey of things like anxiety and depression and medical issues. Well, I have to add that in because of episode 5. And yeah, pretty much this one is titled Therapy 1 Year Later. Now, it's not gotten to the point that it has been a year since I sort of completed my therapy. For people who want to know all about that, it was in the previous episode over a year ago. That was when I started. I started in September of 2023. And I finished it in, I believe it was just after the new year. So it would have been essentially, New Year 2024. And yeah, I mean, it's been tough. It has been quite tough. A lot of it is because of reasons beyond my control. But I do think sort of altogether, I think that I've been able to deal with the things that that I referred myself to therapy in the first place. I think it's allowed me to deal with those better when it comes to that. The TLDR pretty much is that I was quite depressed. I was also going through a multitude of stresses, especially at that point. Which I wasn't able to prioritize and resolve. And that I was incredibly anxious about a lot of things. For people who don't know, when I referred myself to therapy back in, would have been around May of last year, I was about a couple of weeks in to starting a new job. And yeah, obviously, so that's quite stressful. But also there was a lot of stuff that happened in April. One of them, which I might as well divulge now, since it has been a good almost year and a half since, is that in that year my father had suffered a heart attack as well, which obviously put a lot of stresses on when it comes to that. And that sort of happened around the same time. Probably about maybe a week or so afterwards. And when I probably should have taken a bit of time off, I instead soldiered on, which is probably wasn't the best idea to do that. And instead it got to the point that obviously at a new job at work, you're on a probationary period. And I, at that point, was absolutely failing mine. I was the role, or essentially the duties that I had weren't incredibly suitable to myself at that point. And I was getting essentially wound up in my own head about it, which was getting me more and more stressed. When it comes to that everything's all good now. My father's fine. He actually recently had second surgery to unblock a stent yesterday. So he's fine. He's still fighting on. My job, I'm still at the same job. My role has altered to sort of play into my strengths, but it was also something that the business needed. So I'm essentially not doing the same role as what I was employed for, but I've essentially I'm aware of a fair few hats in the company when it comes to that, and it's it was something that I hope was sort of easy to come to, and there didn't need to be a massive amount of leeway to do that. I do hope that, I obviously don't want to cause too much of a trouble when it comes to that. But yeah, and I'm essentially thriving when it comes to that now. And I'm I'm quite enjoying it myself. And I think a lot of that is due to because that I realized that something was wrong. And that it before last year, I had never been to therapy at all. I'm 31 now, and I'd never been to therapy at all. And yeah, it I don't know whether it was that I felt like I needed it, or that I felt like that I could just power through it. Or that it's not that bad. But sort of looking back, as I have done for a couple of months, more than that actually, that yeah, I'd probably needed it a lot earlier, to be honest. There was a lot of time in sort of like my late teens in college, early 20s, and even sort of mid 20s, where I certainly could have needed that, and I just didn't take it. It was. I guess it was because I was quite depressed. I was essentially in a rut and just going day by day, and just nothing was getting better. So what's the point in trying to do something new? It's not going to get any better. Which was pretty much my mindset for a lot of my adulthood, to be fair. But yeah, since therapy, obviously 1 year later since I started doing therapy, I finished it, as I said, in January. It has improved quite a lot. Not to say that this year has been an easy one. It certainly hasn't been. There's been obviously a lot more challenges, a lot more stresses. I did have another breakdown last month, which is sort of why I'm making this video. But mostly because I think I probably dealt with that one better, I think. I mean, I'm pretty much okay now. And I was pretty much okay after about a week afterwards. So where usually it would take a lot longer to sort of like get back to normality. I'm not going to go into the details of the of the breakdown itself, but you could probably guess, sort of like, especially when it comes to anxiety and everything, that it's a lot of fear, and just being scared, I guess, about things that are happening, or things that your own head is coming up with. And yeah, it just cracked when it comes to that. And I think a lot of the reason why it's, I think, a lot easier now to get over that and to, fingers crossed, touch wood, prevent another one of those from happening, is what I've been doing over the last sort of 6 months, which people on this channel are probably aware of, which is I've been doing music. Well, I say I've been doing music, I haven't been, but I've been writing music at least. And I essentially, what the best music, I always think, is one that speaks to you personally. So what better song is there than one that you've written yourself? And I've got ones for like multiple things. I've got ones for when I'm happy, when I'm depressed, when I'm getting like memories of what's happened in the past and everything, which there are on occasions I just can't shake those, of things that have happened to me and everything like that. That I then listen to the songs I've made when it comes to that, and as childish as it sounds and as silly as it sounds, it's like, it's essentially you're talking to yourself, but it makes you feel heard in a way and comforted in a way, and that might sound like the silliest thing to you, and I'm gonna be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if it did. But to me, it's it helps, and I think quite honestly, regardless of how someone is able to do their own sort of self-coping, I guess, as long as it doesn't hurt anyone else and it aids them, then, what's the problem with it? A lot of people go, like, hiking or go to the gym or something like that, and obviously with my medical issues, let's say, that's not really something that I can do incredibly often and on the fly. So instead, I've sort of let my imagination run wild a bit, which I'm certainly more like I'm not a physical guy. I'm more an imaginative, creative, bloke, which, is probably why I'm still doing this as a bloody hobby. But yeah, I mean, it really has helped me out. It's allowed me to sort of stir up the creative pot, see what comes up, see what shakes loose, and then if I do get into those areas again, I can just sort of pop that on. It makes me feel sort of heard and comforted in a way, which is beneficial. And I will be releasing those eventually, just so it may help other people as well. And again, if it helps out me, brilliant. If it helps out other people, then also brilliant. That's sort of the reason why I made this channel in the first place. I wanted to make it. It wasn't, it wasn't for anyone. It wasn't for anyone to watch it. But I'm so happy that we've gotten to the point that we're at, 2,900 subscribers, 100 off 3K, and yeah, I mean, I essentially made like my first YouTube channel just because I wanted to make it for myself, and if other people like it, then great. And it's exactly the same thing over 17 years later when it comes to that, especially when it comes to this music. And yeah, it's certainly helped me when it comes to that. It certainly has. I guess when it comes to the therapy itself, it was a template. It was a stepping stone of what you could do. Obviously, when it comes to, like, I could say, so like the certain things about the therapy I went through, I already did that, in the last video, I believe. And it's not for everybody. One solution won't work for another. And unfortunately, there are people out there who will put all of the same, even if the mental health issue is named the same, they'll put them all under the same box because they're all the same. And my defense against that theory is simple. You could have 3 people who have broken their legs. Same place, same injury. They all get it, they all have surgery and everything on the leg, and, and everything's fine. One of them ends up perfectly fine, no problems. One of them develops, like, gangrene, and they have to have their leg amputated during recovery. One of them gets a blood clot and they die. But that's 3 very drastic outcomes. But it's all from the same specific issue, because it's not about the issue itself. It's about the person that's having it. That's the difference. And it is a shame that a lot of people, probably not as much nowadays as it was probably a long time ago, don't understand that. I can't seem to get their head around it, I guess. Anyway, I'm babbling when it comes down, so he's talking about therapy, not about an incident, let's say. But yeah, therapy it truly has helped me out when it comes to that. And yeah, I haven't taken specifics on board. Like I believe I said in the last episode, there are things like going out for walks, and just sort of like no earphones in, but just sort of looking around you and just hearing everything, which certainly did work. Certainly did work when I'm stressed, and I still do that every so often. Not incredibly often, but every so often. Yeah, but instead I've sort of transformed that into yeah, essentially writing it all down, which in my mind it gets it out of my head and onto paper, and then on from paper into ears, I guess. Just to get it out of my head for that. It's like if it turns up again, I've got something for it. So sort of preparing for the future, I guess, when it comes to that. But yeah, 1 year later, and yeah, it's I've had mostly a smile on my face this entire one, which I think is probably the first time when it comes to that. I've probably chuckled a couple of times during this, but yeah, 1 year later, it was certainly needed. It was certainly needed. It was and I'm, as I've said, there's been a lot of stresses this year. There's been a lot of worries this year. There's been a lot of doubts this year. But I can also look back on this year about the things that I've improved on. I can look at the things that I'm proud of. And I can look at how I've helped other people be happy. Whether it's personal or whether it's obviously through my through YouTube. When many years before I wouldn't be able to do that, because obviously with something like depression, you just think of the bad things. You won't think of the good things, or you won't think of them as very important. But essentially on my side, it's treat every small victory like a big one, and treat every big defeat like a little one, I guess. At least for the time being, until it sort of starts averaging out and I can sort of take small victories, and they mean small victories, but, small defeats don't mean big defeats when it comes to that. But it's sort of like a mindset I'm trying to put myself into, as we are, well, almost a month away, going into 2025. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to 2025. Hoping to make a lot more improvements. And yeah, I'm also hoping to get a lot of videos done as well when it comes to that. So anyway, everyone, thank you very much for listening. If you're still here, thank you very much. And yeah, I've been Chris, and I'll see you for, well, some more Let's Plays. Yeah, I'll see you around.